This is the Red Line, and I am your host, Jimmy Red. Thanks for tuning in to the Red Line. I appreciate you guys showing up. Sorry, I took a couple weeks off there. I had a few things going in class and couldn't quite make it, but we're going to come back into you this week here for the Red Line. It's Halloween, so happy Halloween out there to everyone. You're going to see this a couple days late, but I figured I'd say happy Halloween. Hopefully everybody's safe, stays warm if it's cold in your locations, and enjoy a happy Halloween there with your families. Also, seeing that it's Halloween, there was another thing going on. NFL trade deadline. It's today. A lot of big trades happened, a lot of big stuff happened, a lot of big shakeups, and a few of them that were actually really surprising to me. Let's start off with the one that was the latest one that just happened. The Carolina Panthers traded their wide receiver that they selected and their number 2 receiver on the team this year behind Christian McCaffrey, who's the leading receiver on the team. Calvin Benjamin, the kid that got out of Florida State, 6'5", huge kid. They traded him to the Bills for a 3rd round and a 7th round pick. I'm surprised on that pick, especially with that trade, seeing that kid's the number 2 receiver. I saw a lot with him. The reason I can see that happen is he made somebody mad, or they knew he wasn't going to resign. If they knew he wasn't going to resign, they had to get assets for the kid. And I can't tell you if there's problems between him and Cam, because I don't know. But if there was, then I could see that being why they had to get rid of him, because they knew he wasn't going to resign. Very shocking to me. The guy's very tall, can out-jump. He can almost beat any defender. He's not very fast. He's not the fastest guy there is on the field. He can be outrun, but he's tall, and he can out-jump. So if you get into those 50-50 balls, it's more like 80-20 with him because he's tall. So I think that's going to be big, but it doesn't hurt Carolina that bad because they still have Devin Funchess. He's a tall kid. They got out of Michigan. Still got McCaffrey and all of them. So I think they'll be okay. It's going to hurt a little bit, especially losing their number 2 receiver this year. It's going to be a big pickup for the Bills, though, especially for Tyrod. It's a big target for Tyrod Taylor to hit, and a big target for Tyrod's what he needs. And I think the Bills needed that extra step on offense because their defense looked great. But they needed that extra step on offense to really get rolling, and I think Tyrod Taylor can now pick it up. So I think that was a good win for the Bills. And I don't really know about Carolina. You got to see what they get out of the draft with those picks to really know what happened with Carolina there. The other one was the Dolphins and the Eagles. The Dolphins sent Jay Ajayi, their running back, to the Eagles for a 4th round pick. I think they sold themselves short on that one. I really do, because Jay Ajayi, I'm not saying he's an elite running back, but he's really good. He's a consistent running back. He's going to go out there almost every game. He's going to get you 50 yards and score you at least a touchdown. And the Eagles need that because they got the quarterback, they got the receivers, and they got a good defense. The running game was struggling, and they go and get Jay Ajayi, and I think that takes their offense to another level as well. They're all in to go do it. I mean, Wentz looks good. Excuse me. Wentz looks good, and he's got what he needs, and now they do this, and I think that opens the passing game up for him now that they have that running threat. The Dolphins, I don't know where that was for them. There's got to be something else in that deal for them. I mean, they're on their 7th quarterback on the depth chart, it seems like, so they don't have any of those. So I don't know why they would get rid of their running back when that's all they really got left. So I don't know if they're doing a rebuild and trying to suck and get a good quarterback in the draft, or what they're doing at all. That just is mind-boggling to me. So I don't see where the Miami came from on that deal, especially just getting a 4th round pick. So we'll have to see what their actual reasoning behind that one was. It's mind-boggling. Another one that happened, that was probably the biggest one to happen, to be honest with you, the one that made the most news. I missed on this one here by far. I said a few months ago that Brady was going to be a Bengal and Garoppolo was going to start in New England. Well, I missed. Garoppolo didn't want to sit there, like I said. I knew that. And Garoppolo actually got traded. It was the biggest shocker of all of them. Garoppolo got traded to the 49ers for a 2nd round pick. Well, I think that's a very good pickup for the Niners. The Niners did a really good job getting that because they got Kyle Shanahan, an offensive mastermind as quarterback. Then you bring in a guy like this, Jimmy Garoppolo, who's shown the talent, has the talent, and has been in Bill Belichick and behind Tom Brady into your lineup to be a quarterback. And you don't think that he's going to shine with the offensive mind that he's been behind, the players he's been behind, and going to Kyle Shanahan? That kid's going to be good. Now if he goes and fails, it's on him. But he's going to be good, I think. And I think that's really exactly what they needed to do. I don't see where the Patriots came from on that deal at all, because they got a second-round draft pick out of the deal, and statistics show that a quarterback, if you draft a quarterback in the second round, they have a 40% chance of being a franchise quarterback and starting in the NFL. It's 40%. It's not a very good odds, especially when you already had a guy in Jimmy Garoppolo who's proven that he could do it. Tom Brady doesn't have much time left in my mind. That's why I said he was going to Cincinnati. I say he's done at the end of next year, which would be the end of the 2019 season, or he's done at the end of the 2020 season. That's when he's going to be done. And now that you've traded Garoppolo out and you've got rid of Jacoby Brissett, who do you have to go to now? And then you go and draft a quarterback in the second round with this pick here, and he only has a 40% chance to succeed. So it's going to be hard. And I don't think Bill's going to stay after Brady retires. I think they both walk off together. So then you have to either use Josh Daniels or Matt Patricia as your head coach. You're probably going to use Josh McDaniels, but Josh McDaniels has already showed that he's not that great of an NFL coach because he did it in Denver. Did he have the weapons? Not really. He had Tim Tebow as a quarterback. Not saying Tebow was terrible, but he just didn't have the stuff he would have in New England. Matt Patricia, defensive. I think offensive coaches work a little better. It seems to be an offensive league right now. Offensive side coaches are what you really need, it seems like, as of right now. Bill O'Brien is, Kyle Shanahan. The guy who's coaching there in the Rams, I don't remember his name right now. He's the youngest one there is. He's an offensive mastermind. All these guys are offensive coaches, and their teams are coming up. Even Andy Reid, look at him, rolling. So offensive is where it's at right now in the NFL. And Josh Daniels, if he doesn't get taken by somebody, he possibly well could this year. So could Matt Patricia. So you don't know. And that's the big thing that could happen there. But I think the biggest one that did the biggest shakeup out of all of them was the trade between the Houston Texans and the Seattle Seahawks. Those two just played, but then they go and make a trade. Dwayne Brown, the left tackle for the Texans, who played weak side, which was blind side, for Deshaun Watson, who already has a terrible offensive line, is gone. That was the best tackle there was on the team. There's not very many good left tackles out there in the NFL this year, and that was one of them. Well, now he goes to Seattle, who has a terrible offensive line, and they got a good quarterback in Russell Wilson, who has proven he's an NFL Super Bowl champion caliber quarterback. You go and give him something like this, so now he has more time to throw. He's got somebody to block for him, and he can still use his feet to run. You give him a weapon like that, that boosts the Seahawks up for the playoffs, makes them better through the rest of the year because now he is ready to go even more. So that is a big win for them, but I don't see where Houston came from on that deal because now you got a terrible offensive line, a rookie quarterback, J.J. Watt's hurt, and you expect your rookie quarterback to be able to step up after losing that. Hopefully you get something out of that deal that's really going to help you out, because if not, you're in trouble, because Seattle definitely won there by a mile, because now they can do what they need to do with Russell Wilson, and that was huge. Those were all the big ones that happened in the NFL as of today at the trade deadline, which is absolutely incredible. But a couple of those games this week were just insane and crazy, and just you should have never seen them coming. Like Thursday Night Football, the Dolphins played the Baltimore Ravens, and the Ravens won 40-0. I mean, 40-0. And the spread was like 3.5, and they destroyed them. I don't know if they didn't show up or what happened there, but boy, so I couldn't even explain it. I'm mind boggled, as you can tell right now. It was incredible. No game should have ever looked like that for any team. It doesn't matter who they were, and it was shocking. The Patriots won 21-13 over the Chargers. I was pretty surprised by that. I thought LA was starting to get into a streak, starting to get rolled. Phillip Rivers starting to look good. Patriots defense was, obviously it's not the best defense there is, but they kept it together somehow and they pulled it off, and Brady had a pretty solid game. The Saints are still rolling. The Falcons, it looked all right. Eagles, amazing. But the game that really was the big game to me was the one that happened last night. Kansas City Chiefs, Denver Broncos. That was the one that was the big one there that I think was probably the best one to really set it back and put some stuff on the burner for us. Because Kansas City lost the last two, got them back on a winning streak. It was a conference game. They needed to win it. Denver's got a good defense. They got a good offense. And I think that's what they needed to do to go against that defense and really step up to that next level. They won 29-19. Kansas City beat the Broncos. Alex Smith only had one touchdown with 200 yards. That's okay. It's not terrible. But they still won the game because of Trevor Siemian on the other side of the ball. You can't score points if you don't throw it to your teammates and you throw it to the other team. Siemian, the seventh rounder out of Northwestern that they have on their team, threw for 200 yards, but he threw 3 interceptions. He's starting to, this year, he's starting to show that he's a seventh-round pick out of Northwestern. I hate to say it that way, but it really looks like he's starting to show his football capacity. He's peaked out, and now he's starting to come back down. I think that they need to really look at Paxton Lynch, or even seeing that Kirk Cousins is looking to be shopped around. Maybe he's probably going to get franchise tagged if he doesn't sign in Washington, but they could look at him. You could bring Kirk Cousins there. Why wouldn't you bring him there if you could? So there's a lot of options out there for them. They definitely have to find somebody other than Trevor Siemian. I know they got the kid they drafted last year out of Memphis, Paxton Lynch, with the 24th pick. I say give him a shot. He hasn't really had a true shot. You draft him in the first round. If you draft a quarterback in the first round, that means you see potential in him. You see him as a potential franchise quarterback. You don't just draft him in the first round and say, oh, we're going to waste a first-round pick. Because that's basically all you did. You wasted a first-round pick on a backup quarterback when you could have went and got a tackle, a guard, a defensive end, a wide receiver for Trevor Siemian. Somebody to throw it to. Instead, you get a backup with the first pick that you choose in the draft. Come on now. You got to use it wisely. I don't think that was the best pick that John Elway made if he's not going to use him. So they got to figure that out. The running game, it was okay. Both teams didn't have that great of a game. I mean, Kareem Hunt ran 22 times, had 46 yards. C.J. Anderson, he ran 15 times, had 78 yards. He ran pretty good. C.J. Anderson did. Wasn't the greatest game. Nobody scored any rushing. No, he didn't score any rushing touchdowns. Booker scored one. That was what busted the game open. When they were only winning by 6, that busted it open again for them. So that was a big touchdown. I think it turned momentum back to Kansas. Not turn it back. That's what tried to turn momentum back to them. And then Kansas City came back and just walked it. So they brought him within 6 when he did it. And then it just busted from there. It was terrible. I didn't see it. Kelsey, though, let me tell you about that guy. Whew. He is a freak of a tight end in the NFL. He is, in my mind, even when Gronk is healthy, Travis Kelce is the best tight end there is in football, hands down. He had 133 yards, a touchdown on 7 receptions. He almost had a game like Ed Dixon did for Carolina a couple weeks ago. It's incredible. Dixon had 184 yards that game. This guy had 133. But Dixon only did it once. Travis Kelce's consistent. Kelce can block. He can catch. Kelce, I think, is just the tight end who can do it all. He can line up as a slot. He can block. He can line up off the end. He can hit a dig. He can do a curl. Whatever you need him to do, he can do it. And I think he's very talented and athletic, and he's the best tight end in the game. So I just see that needs to be more recognizable for a tight end, that Kelsey's there, and he doesn't get the love that he needs. Even though Alex Smith is this quarterback, he's the one who gets the love. Alex Smith is underrated, and he's possibly fighting for a job next year as well, so that might be why his numbers are up, because he knows he's got Patrick Mahomes behind him. So with that being said, and knowing that there's quarterbacks moving around in the NFL, let's talk about some of the people who are currently in college right now and the rankings going on tonight. They're going to release the first playoff ranking of the year. I'm fired up and I love it. Love it, boys. Right now, they have Bama at 1, Georgia at 2, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Penn State, your top 7. Pretty solid if you ask me. But there's a problem there. I don't see them staying that way. The reason being, I see the rankings when they come out. I see a little bit of moving going around. I see Notre Dame jumping up into 4th. Reason being, they got a lot of good wins. I understand they got a loss. They lost at home to Georgia. But they got a lot of good wins. They beat USC. So they're right there, and they're battling with all these tough teams. Do they got bigger games ahead of them? Yes, still do. They got to win out to get in, obviously. But I put them in at 4. 3, I got to put in Ohio State. Ohio State's got to be in at 3. Ohio State just beat Penn State. They got to go to 3. 2, everybody's probably not going to like this, but I'm going to say it's Bama. I'm going to say Bama's number 2. The reason I say Bama's 2 is the biggest win Bama's got this year so far is against Florida State. And Florida State's just Florida State. You might as well, I mean, they're not even really Florida State this year, seeing that they lost Francois and they got James Blackman as their quarterback. So they're not the same team that they were. If they would have been the team they were when they had Francois, okay, I give it to Bama because Francois had that team rolling. But with this new quarterback, they're not the same team. Georgia is going to be the team that's top of the board. Georgia's number 1 in my mind because of the wins they got. Georgia went to South Bend and won in South Bend. Georgia's beat LSU. Georgia's beat the teams they have to beat. And they're rolling. They're undefeated. They're yet to play Bama yet. They will play each other. But I think Bama wins that in an upper hand matchup. But I got to give it to Georgia right now because I know how the committee looks at stuff. The committee doesn't look at it if you won your conference or any of that. They look at who you've played and who your resume shows. And right now, Georgia's resume shows a better win than Bama's. Georgia goes to the top for right now, but once Bama plays somebody that's worth anything, that's a pretty good team, Bama would jump up to 1 if they don't lose. So, as of now, I got Georgia 1, Bama 2, Ohio State 3, Notre Dame in at 4. Then I put my first team out. I'm going to put Wisconsin. Then I'm going to put Clemson. Those are my first 2 teams out. I'm going to leave Penn State at 7 for right now. I want to see how they recover. They just had a heartbreaking loss to Ohio State. So I want to see how they recover. And seeing that we're on that game right now, let's speak a little bit about it. I mean, they led that game for 3.5 hours, Penn State did. And they weren't having any problem doing anything they wanted. And Ohio State found a way to just to fight back into it. And it was wild to see that. Because you would expect Penn State to not let a team roll back into it like they did, and they did. J.T. Barrett took that team and just put them on his shoulders and took off late in the game. I mean, he had a great game. He had 328 yards and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's really starting to heat up late into the year, which is absolutely awesome. J.K. Dobbins, he's still looking all right. He doesn't look like a Zeke Elliott did back when he was in college playing these guys. But Dobbins looks pretty good. I mean, he had 13 rushes, 88 yards, no touchdowns. I can go without the touchdowns, but the yards got to come up a little bit. He's got to be able to open the game up a little bit more for J.T. Barrett. But he had enough here to keep it going. On the other side of the ball, everybody talks about that one guy, Saquon Barkley. Well, let me tell you something here. It's the first time Saquon faced an NFL-style defense right here. And everybody was talking about Heisman. He's going to be good in the NFL. He's going to be the number 2 pick. Well, if he gets picked early in the NFL, what's he going to be behind? A pretty bad offensive line. Just going to tell you. If you're one of the top teams in the draft, you're not very good. So you have a bad offensive line normally, unless somebody trades up to get you. So you normally have a bad offensive line. And if you have a bad offensive line, you're not going to run very well. And in this game here, he ran against this NFL-style defense with an okay offensive line, and he had 21 carries for 44 yards and a touchdown rushing. Don't get me wrong, he did have a punt return, all-purpose yards, that's fine, cool. But they're going to use him as a running back in the NFL. And he's got to get those numbers up. And they saw what an NFL-style defense can do to him. And I think he might have been exposed a little bit, not 100% sure, but they showed ways that he could be stopped, and it hurt. He wasn't even the leading rusher on the team. His quarterback had more rushing yards than he did. That's incredible. You're the running back, and your quarterback had more than you did. And you're considered a Heisman favorite? No, man. I can't buy into that. I'm not going to take nothing away from the kid and say he's terrible, and I'm not saying he's terrible. I'm just saying that it's going to be hard for him to make that next step, and he showed it right there. So, Saquon, you're going to have to step your game up to go to the NFL, bud, because if you don't, you could wind up being one of the biggest busts as a running back to come out. We had this discussion in the car today. Me, Dano, and LC, the guys from the Road Crew Show. Check out their stuff too, by the way. They have one. It's called the Road Crew Show. Dano and LC do it. And we were discussing this in the car about running backs who were bust. And there was a name I brought up today. This guy was just drafted a couple years ago. There was a bust. Huge bust. And we don't want Barkley to be like that. Barkley is a gifted individual. He's built like a house. He's quick. He's strong. He's fast. He can make cuts. And, excuse me, I don't want him to wind up like that. And this guy's name that I'm going to tell you, you're going to say, wow, I remember that guy. He lit the college game on fire. LaMichael James. He was drafted to the 49ers. Remember that guy? Played at Oregon. Guy was running all over the place. Almost won a Heisman Trophy. And now he's not even in the NFL. I think he made it 3 years. You heard about him his rookie year, and you didn't hear about his sophomore or junior year, and he was gone. So, Saquon, I don't want him to be like that, and I don't want him to be a bounce around kind of guy. He's gifted. He is a very gifted individual. I'm not taking that away from the kid. He's just got to find a way to get through an NFL-style defense, and it's going to be hard for him to do. And if he can figure that out, he's going to be fine. But I think it's going to be very difficult. I forgot a couple things I want to speak with to you guys about here in the NFL. Sorry. Zeke got suspended. They upheld his 6-game suspension, which is astonishing. And that's going to be tough. Now you're really going to find out what Dak can do. I mean, he's got Alfred Morris, and he's got Darren McFadden. They left McFadden set in a lot of the year to keep him healthy because they kind of knew this was coming. So McFadden kind of stayed off to the side. They used Alfred Morris a lot, and they used Zeke when he was there. So McFadden's got fresh legs pretty much for the year, which is very good. But he's not a Zeke Elliott. And I'm not saying Zeke's great, because I think if you put Zeke behind a terrible offensive line, like I was saying, he ain't going to do nothing either. So he's good because of who he's behind, and that's what makes a running back. So I think Darren McFadden's going to do great because he's fresh, he's ready to go, he's fired up. And I think that's going to be a big help, and that's going to help Dak a lot. I know he's got to put that team on his shoulder, but he's been carrying him already as it is because of all these allegations going on over Zeke's head. So basically he's been carrying the team as it is because he knows he has to. Now it's just that little bit of extra added pressure to the top of his head. I think he's going to do fine. It's the toughest 5-game stretch there is, though. I mean, they got Atlanta in there, and it's going to be tough. But they play a lot of these games at home. It's a tough 5-game stretch, and it's going to be rough. So we'll find out what this kid's made of, and if they can find a way to make it through here, I think they'll be fine. But if they don't, I think the Redskins could possibly steal the conference with Kirk Cousins and get in at 9-7, and that would be pretty crazy considering they can get in at 9-7, considering who they are and all of that. Especially seeing that you expected Dallas to come in and have an amazing year because that's who Dallas is, and they did not have the style of year that anyone expected. And being that way, it just shocks everybody. Seeing if there's anything else I want to speak about here with you guys before I jump off the air. I'm just scrolling through. Oh, while I wasn't on the air, I've missed a couple weeks. I forgot about this one. Aaron Rodgers went down. That was big. It was big. Aaron Rodgers goes down and breaks his collarbone. He's out for the year. And they put in young Brett Hundley. Third-year kid out of UCLA. Went to Chandler High School in Chandler, Arizona. He's a family friend of ours. It's cool to see him get in. It's very cool. But you're finding out how valuable Aaron Rodgers is to that franchise. You're finding out he is the MVP of that franchise right there. Just like Andrew Luck is to the Colts. Nothing taken away from Brett at all. He looks phenomenal for getting out there in the scenario he's put in. But he's not an Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is adapted to that offense the way it should be. And he's taken it to where it should. So what he's doing, I think, is amazing. and I'm very excited about the way that things could shake out for him if somebody gives him a shot and they build a team around him. I'm not saying anybody's going to, but we can see. Also, this is a turning point in the NFL season. I'm very excited about that because it's starting to get cold outside, and this is when you find out who the teams are. So the last few weeks have been just setups for this right here, and I loved watching it. This is where you find out who the NFL teams are right now. This week to the end of the year. Starting to get cold outside. Weather's getting cold. It's when playoff football starts getting in. It's when you find out who your real fighters are. And this is who you find out who's going to make that run to the playoffs. So I find out this is when you see who your best teams are. And whoever really turns it on is where it is. Because your teams that were good could all of a sudden start being terrible. Kansas City showed that year after year. They've been great, and then it gets cold and they go down. So we'll see. Obviously, New England's starting to find their way to pick stuff up, which is no surprise. I'm surprised, but nobody else is surprised. I thought their defense was terrible and it was going to hurt. But you also have to think Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl with the 32nd worst defense in the league a couple years ago. So if Aaron Rodgers can do it, I'm sure Tom Brady can do it too. No surprise. If he does, good. I'm happy for him. And maybe he goes out this year. I mean, you never know. He goes out on top. He goes out riding top of it. But if he does, man, that's going to be a shock. So that's the Red Line this week. So make sure you guys tune in again next week for the Red Line because I'm going to have more interesting stuff going on for you. We're going to have more college football because they're going to have the next week out of playoffs. Obviously, that's going to be awesome. We'll know, and I'll be able to break it down a little bit farther for you once we know how they laid it out this week. So make sure you tune in next week for the Red Line.